let's get into the world of Doomsdays.
Okay, so are we talking like the religious version of this? Or are we talking about like the people in the bunkers with all the food storage?
Doomsday preppers.
Yeah.
All the above. So why I want to bring this up is there's like a whole market behind this. It's like a business, the Doomsday prepper business. Not only that, there's always these predictions. Like I remember this is kind of when it started, like for me, like when I took it really seriously back in maybe 2010, maybe 2013, something like that. And it was like, that's it. 2-3 more years, something's going to happen. Something's going to give. 10 years later, something's going to happen. Something's going to give. And I think it's almost a human psychology thing where it's I call it the now phenomena. Because I'm alive now, the doomsday is going to happen now. Or some, event that's going to change humans forever is going to happen now. Do you know what I mean? Like especially growing up in a religious environment, it was like the raptures. The rapture is gonna be like soon. It's gonna come now. It's soon. Get ready. Rapture's happening.
So it's funny because literally last night on one of my feeds was a person talking about a rapture sort of statement like that and was tying it into the current, I think, April eclipse.
April 8th eclipse, yes.
Yeah. And they were talking about how it's going to pass through the whale and all these things. And, if you look for signs, I think you can find anything. That's not to say you should ignore people when they are giving you warnings. Because I feel like that's when you start out, that's what it sounds like. It's a warning. Buy a bunch of food, put it in your basement just in case, because there's a chance something might happen. And I think our society is built like this because think of just insurance. What is insurance if not a sort of monopolized...
Just in case.
Yeah, just in case.
That is the doomsday. That ultimate doomsday business is insurance.
Right. And we also have an expiration date to ourselves. And so you want to prevent premature expiration. So if you can be
prepared.
Right. I think like with anything, you can overdo stuff. So one of the telltale signs of you overdoing anything, gambling, right,
Sure.
is that it starts to interfere with your normal life. If this is all you're doing and all you're trying to do is get money to go back and, try and hit it hard at the table or whatever, it's a problem. If you go out to the casino 2 or 3 times a year and have fun, then you're okay. And I think if you want to stock up on some food that doesn't perish very easily, the Mormons will pop up in our podcast a lot. Because I was one for 10 years.
Oh, so you're very familiar with the whole...
But, they have a sound practice of having food storage in the home for 1 year. They recommend you have at least a year of food storage in your house.
They're natural preppers.
Well, but they have it at a certain level. And then a lot of the food that people have in their food storage, they will either donate as it starts to expire and they replace it.
Wow,
So it's all part of the community pot.
So it's an ongoing...
Right. You don't just buy 1 year's of food and then you're forever have it.
That's done off my Mormon checklist.
Right. It's maintenance too. You have to maintain it.
Absolutely. And I mean, I kind of tried it a little bit, and the maintenance part is that what gets me. Like, you look at it, like, oh, this is 2 years expired, which is probably still okay, but I love the maintenance idea. But anyways, so there's the prepping portion, right, of this whole doomsday scenario or doomsday talk or doomsday I don't know, people talking about something ending, something happening, right? And then the second part is the people that are always talking something's gonna happen. It's like this fear, I don't know, fear talk always, and it's either the solar eclipse or the earthquake's gonna happen or meteorite's gonna hit or the sun's gonna explode. There's always
Right.
something happening. And my last 10 years as I've been following this, it makes me wonder how long has this been going on? How long? And with the invention of internet, everybody you could just dial in and you could hear it.
Again, I think it's been going on forever because when kings and sovereigns ruled the land and they would get all their people riled up, it's like, oh, we got to build up the forts and go kill all these people or whatever. I think it's been going on for a long time. I think people have been using the fear of impending doom to motivate people to get what they want. And I think, like, you started off talking about this and was kind of why I was leading into that little thing that popped up on my feed. The guy was not just giving out the warning of, hey, we might be in the end times. Here's what I have found. That would be one thing, right? If it was just like, wow, isn't this all very coincidental? And look how it lines up to the Bible. And that would have been informative. But then the end of it is, and if you also feel that the end of times are near, click on my link for more. And there it is. It's the business end
Fear.
of it.
What it's called?
Fear mongering.
Fear mongering. Okay, yeah. It's like you're always trying to squeeze the fear out of the people, and that's your business. It's like drip, drip, drip.
Right. So, and there's a difference between being afraid and being prepared. And sometimes being prepared helps people alleviate their fears.
That's actually, I think you nailed it right there. When somebody's prepared for something and it's never going to happen.
Right.
But they're still scared of it anyways. And that preparedness will have them actually help them live normal life because they're always like secure in whatever imaginary scenario they're going to be in.
And think about like martial arts training. That's, people don't just walk around.
The chances you're going to use it is probably nothing. And in martial arts, they teach you to avoid fights.
Right. Don't fight outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But if you ever got into a scuffle,
You're confident. You know what you're doing.
right, and you probably have a good chance of, whether you defeat your enemy or not, you probably have a better chance of coming out the other side.
Surviving.
Yeah. So,
Are we going to build a bunker?
panic room. Absolutely.
Panic
Yeah,
room.
no, you saw the lotto, right? It's almost $1 billion again. I'm going to go buy a ticket on my way home and I'm going to need a
Ooh,
panic.
the lottery, you know what they call it, right? The tax for the poor.
Yeah.
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 I don't think I've ever bought a lottery ticket, ever.
I only play when the jackpot's over $1 billion.
So you play twice.
A couple of times.
I don't know. I think I did play scratch offs, little things. My sister gave me I think it was a Christmas present. It was kind of cool. But I think that's the only lottery I've
No
ever
casinos?
done. No. Oh no, I went with a friend once, and it was his money. He played. They told me what to do, but gave me I don't know, $20 to play in the machine. But I've never actually spent my own money playing casinos or lottery, gambling, nothing. I've spent enough in various cryptos. That's my
Right, that's how you
idea.
gamble,
Yeah,
the
right. That's,
stock market.
That's my preparing for Doomsday going the other way.
Well, there's something else too about certain portions of that preparation. So a panic room, right?
I love that idea. The
Right.
panic room,
Can double as a lot of other things. Like
gun safe. No, I'm kidding.
right. No, it can double as other things. Other than providing you protection, it in of itself is an investment into your home. It's not like you're going to lose that asset. Really, food is the only very temporary commodity.
Sure.
Most-
that goes down.
Yeah. So most of these people who are doing things to prep, they're going to invest in guns and they're going to be investing
Yeah, and that value is pretty much static.
right.
Yeah.
So, the nice part about it is you're not really out too much. Kind of makes me think maybe we should do more of it.
What do you mean you're not out too much? Like you're not spending too much?
Well, you might spend your money, but it's not just gone.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's like an investment. Like good cookware or
Sure.
fair,
Yeah, it makes sense. Because the panic room, again, it's not for doomsday. It's for any dangerous scenario.
Right.
Somebody's breaking in, panic room, right?
Right.
Some sort of storm, panic room.
Although on the topic, I do think there is a whole separate genre of people who are really about the doomsday. Like, it's not just going to be somebody breaking in. It's not just going to be, it's literally the rapture.
Yeah, them buying 40 acres. Oh, okay. So, but there's two different. There's the rapture doomsday that's like, there's no point of repair because we're all going to be taken away or we're all going to die. And then there's the doomsday that, an EMP is going to hit or a tsunami is going to wipe out one of the coasts. And
Right.
so I'm going to buy 40 acres in, I don't know, North Dakota. And I'm going to build my bunker there and, hide in bunker and live all my life when nothing happens in my bunker.
But it was happy.
I guess if you're by yourself, more power to you. But what if you have a family? What if you have kids? You taking your kids in the middle of nowhere and having them grow up with,
I think if you can raise your kids healthy, meaning, they're not sick and you're not malnourished. And I think part of the beauty of living in America is that you should be able to choose sort of the
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
like people might really criticize, I don't know, Amish people. Some, they're very outside the norm.
I swear the Amish people is a CIA experiment where they're like, we need a society that's segregated from the normal society. Because Amish people, they're the ultimate doomsday. Anything happens, they're gonna survive as long as they survive physically.
Right, as long as it's not a nuclear.
Yeah. Well, that wipes them out. But like any sort of disaster, world economy disaster, it's not gonna affect them whatsoever.
Yeah, they're like, oh, the stock market crashed. Shall we plow the field today?
Yeah, exactly. Shall we race this barn? Yeah.
Speaking, like a little sidebar.
Yeah.
Did you know that you can get Amish raised, fully organic chicken breast from Costco?
From Costco?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Just a little side note.
Oh my God.
This video is not sponsored by Costco, but if you're watching,
it should be.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Interesting. It's good to know. But yeah, I guess, speaking of doomsday, Amish people are like spot on. They know what they're doing.
No, and none of their ways will get affected if we just go back to no technology at all. Or the only thing that's really going to affect them, and I think this is maybe like the third set of doomsday preppers, unless the geopolitical climate changes, if we succumb to a foreign tyranny, right, their way of life would get disturbed.
There's a question, because I do not know the answer. Do Amish people have weapons? Do they have guns specifically?
No.
Is it against their beliefs? So it is a part of the CIA then, because the CIA told not to have guns.
So let's not bank everything on what I say,
Okay.
but this is what I understand. So the Amish don't wear zippers. They wear buttons. That's like an example, right?
Because zippers too advanced technology.
Something like...
Or they can't replicate it.
They can't replicate it. So I think firearms are not against their religion as it pertains to it being a weapon. I think it's against their practice as it relates to being too advanced for what they do. I think they have metal craft, but it's like fire and forge.
Sure.
Because they plow fields, they do.
Well, there were guns before there was electricity. So muskets, right? That was before electricity was taken over and they had big old mills work on an electric motor.
Right. This is true. But
Interesting. I'm gonna look more into the whole Amish thing with
those
weapons.
would be more akin to muskets and like not modern day firearms.
Yeah. You can't.
So
Those are two like night and day differences.
right. So they probably have things like bows and arrows.
Interesting.
You know,
Do they?
I mean, just like I'm analyzing what I know of them, and I'm not
Because they
saying
don't
that.
hunt,
No, they don't.
right? They don't.
No, they farm.
Exactly. So I swear it's a CIA experiment to have this isolated people from everybody, and 300 years later to see where they're at compared to the normal society.
Or they just need to make sure there's always some healthy stock that hasn't been
Or that
super
they need
poisoned.
those the blood and the organs
And the genetics.
genetics.
In case they ever need to, respawn the. We spun off there a little bit.
No, makes sense though. I like it. I like it.
Did you hear about, I guess, have you read the reports on the Amish people as it relates to COVID?
I did at the time. I just, it was kind of like a glance. I'm like, oh, the Amish COVID, okay. And I know they want nothing to do with it.
Well, they don't get vaccinated.
Yeah.
They're
That's why they don't have autism.
That's. I guess we might get cut off for even saying the V word, but we'll run it.
The poke,
Yeah, the jab.
the jab.
But anyways, they don't do that, and I guess their cases were just so like it's crazy. It's like here's the rest of the world,
Yep.
getting it like flies, and part of the reason I'm sure they didn't contract it is because they don't interact with much of the outside world.
Well, once one person got infected, and the person that did, sold the milk and the eggs to some guy that had COVID, they should have technically spread through everybody else.
Yeah, but they have, they don't have confined spaces like we do. They don't have.
That's true.
They don't have.
They're not stuck in an office, 9-10 hours a day.
or any of that stuff. They're
They
not.
don't go to a supermarket with a billion different people that are just going in.
I mean,
and
they
out.
don't have fans. Is kind of the like there's not
AC. Yeah, there's not a AC unit.
Yeah, so you cough and
It's
it
always
just,
circulating
right,
through the
it
whole thing.
just kind of.
Fascinating.
So there's a lot of things. A lot of people want to argue that it was. See, it's because they weren't wearing masks.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
No,
right?
I don't think so. I think it's because, like you said, there's no fans. There's nothing that recirculates the air in the same confined space that there's 300 people sit in. They don't go to supermarkets, the airports, taxis, or whatever.
Right, real public places.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Germ spawns, germ spawn locations. So, I mean, yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. So, back to the Doomsday. Doomsday kind of goes along with the whole climate change. That's kind of the other topic I wanted to bring up.
Yep.
Climate change. Well, hold on. It was the word was changed from world. Oh my God, global warming. Thank you. Global warming to climate change. It kind of under the radar. It kind of slipped in there, and now we're all saying climate change and the whole carbon idea. So there's this one big thing about this whole warming of the oceans because due to carbon buildup carbon atmosphere that retains more heat. There's this I forget what it's called. It's how the water goes through all the continents, right? It's this flow of water. There's a specific name for it, and supposedly that flow is getting slower and slower, right? And there's this canoe effect where, the canoe kind of wobbles. But once it goes all the way. It's not like kind of halfway or, 75%. It just 100%, poof, flip. So the whole idea of this doomsday climate change scenario is this flow is going to stop. And it's going to stop the transfer of heat and cold, and then the top of the globe, the north portion is gonna like start freezing over like almost instantly. You've never heard of that?
I haven't heard this theory.
Yeah, so that's like the big thing, like the biggest scenario. Like,
So due to ocean currents.
yes, to the ocean current slowing down, it's gonna stop transferring the heat up top, and it's gonna start freezing over, and the
That's-
oceans are gonna stop flowing.
So that's crazy because I think one of the problems with this subject is
Global
global warming,
climate change, aka climate change. Yes.
The people who present it fail to include the history that we have. It's like there have been ice ages and there have been periods. One of the poles they have found, like tropical palm leaves in the fossil records, right? Where it's frozen tundra right now.
Oh, yeah.
So
Sure.
I think, when people who are addressing the public bring these things up, they use more of the fearmonger tactic, which is like, oh, we got to fix this or we're all going to die. Instead of, bringing up, the earth has gone through some climate changes. In fact, I don't think it was even very long ago. There was like a little mini ice age where, Michigan, the northern states, there was like a layer of ice that never melted all the way through there. I think that was back in like
So,
17.
by the way, just real quick, the term is called AMOC.
AMOC?
Yeah, that's the current.
Okay.
That's the current we're talking about, and that's where you hear people, we have 3 years or we have 5 years left before, catastrophe's going to happen. And if you stop driving your car and use an electric car, you will save us.
That's good propaganda. Again,
But do you know 99% of the scientists agree on climate change? You know why the 1% don't?
because they're right.
Because they didn't get paid enough to agree.
Oh, is that?
That's what it is. Because, 100% scientists will agree with whatever research they're doing as long as, the person funding the research is telling them to agree.
Right.
So the whole 99% of the scientists, it's also a farce.
I think that for me, the idea is obviously like the climate changes, right? I mean, we can walk back to our flat Earth topic because they're one of their arguments about flat Earth is saying that the world is X million miles away from the sun, but this tiny degree of tilt, whether it's on this side of the sun or that side of the sun, creates all of our seasons. It's like such a fractional.
Yeah, that's because we live in the northern hemisphere versus, in the
Right.
middle.
No,
In the middle, would you notice anything?
they have a wet season and a dry season.
Yeah.
It rains a little more, it rains
It's
a little less.
Exactly. Like there's no there's no winter there. Like we have winter here. But speaking of that, this middle section, have you ever thought about how that is the easiest part to survive? Like,
No.
you mean?
I mean, I think there's a section between. So first of all, if you go to the southern hemisphere, there's virtually nothing good that's easy to survive. You have Africa, right? The African continent, and you have Australia.
Yeah, sure.
That's like the big
And
everything wants you to die.
Everything tries to kill you in Australia.
Okay, the only place that's really super hospitable that's tropical is like over in the Hawaiian Islands and some of those areas. There's literally no venomous snakes on the Hawaiian Islands,
Sure.
right? It like the bug population is like super docile, just very different. So when you look at the middle, though, and you have all like the Amazonian rainforests, and if you go across the tropical zone, dude, there's so much stuff that wants to kill you too. And it's very hard to survive, and you can't farm anything there.
Why is it? Because it all gets eaten up?
No, it's because they don't have seasons. Lots of things that require like crops have cycles.
Sure.
They don't just
Well, it's kind of like wheat and rice,
right.
right? But what about bananas or what's the other called?
Mangoes,
Mangoes.
Well, pineapples are good luck if you ran out of modern agriculture for a pineapple. But there are things that grow, but it's not like where we're at. So there's like the frozen zone, the tropical zone, right? And then there's like this Goldilocks zone where we live.
You think so? You think we live in the Goldilocks zone?
Essentially, where we get 4 seasons. I think it's very hard to survive. It's easy to survive with modern technology in the tropical climates. But, think of Brazil. Think of those places. They don't have abundance of populations because it's too hard. You can't build anything there. The ground is different.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Right? Like in the northern,
you can't grow potatoes.
right, you can't grow potatoes. They don't grow. There's things you can grow, but I don't think it's the ideal.
Well, see, I know so little about the tropical areas and how people survive versus how much I know about, let's say, how people survive, in the 4 seasons and growing potatoes, for example, right? And like you mentioned, the Mormons have, it's part of their whole setup is to prep and be ready for whatever, right? And that's, how can I say it? A lot of the northern, I'd say, European area, Eastern Europe, everybody knows how to survive there. At least they used to, especially through the whole Soviet Union thing. People didn't really have a trouble when Soviet Union collapsed because everybody knew how to survive. Everybody had gardens. They had basements with food prep for who knows how long. And I've seen all this. My parents had it. My grandparents had it. They all had cans, everything. Our basement was stocked with potatoes, growing the little seedling things, whatever they're called. And we always had some sort of cans that we canned. My parents canned themselves by hand. It was part of knowing how to live, survive. So especially when you bring up Mormons as part of their religion or beliefs, to be prepared. Lots of the world is just that's how you survive, is be always prepared.
Right.
So I think it's a very modern idea of why are you preparing, right? You're preparing for something? Why be prepared at all? I think that's a very modern, not only modern, but I would say American idea.
Well, I think the idea of being prepared is shifting, and what they're moving towards is you, the individual, don't have to be so prepared because we've set up crops. We have farmers to work them.
Sure.
Right. And then we have storehouses that we call them stores. And then you can go and get what you need as you need it. Right. It's a much more efficient system.
Oh, yeah. I love it. No, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love how the system we live in right now. I swear we live in the best time ever.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at in the last 124 years, I don't know, 150 years.
124 is a very specific number.
Yeah, 1900 exactly. Even before that, before I guess we had steam, before we had steam powered, right? Even during steam powered, everything was done a certain way for thousands of years, for generations and generations and generations. It's only now, in the last, I don't know, 100 years, 124 years, 100 years, that things have been done differently. The way we wash our clothes, right? The way we travel, the way we communicate. In the last 100 years, that's changed. We've never experienced anything. So yeah, when you say, yeah, we just go to the store and get what we need because we built a system for it to work that way, it's fantastic. It's great. So, I mean, I understand why we're not prepping all the time.
No, and it's hard because on the side, there's like a little sidebar of that. You know, it's like my mom, right? She's still alive right now. She was born into a 1-bedroom house,
Okay.
and there were 5 kids. Okay, so that means mom and dad had a room, and the kids had
Living room.
yeah, so whatever. When you look back at housing historically, they had a house was literally 4 walls and a roof. Like an original house.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. There were no rooms.
There's the main front door. There's maybe 2 windows, maybe 1 window that use the piece of board to close it.
Right. And it's like, you know, you have the cooking area over there and you have everything else over here, right?
Yeah, no, and I watched enough Eastern European movies to, like, the old school, even World War II, like, they would come in and just be one big room, right?
Right.
There'd be a sleeping area over here. There'd be a cooking area over here. This would be like a center area here where everybody would eat.
Right.
But yeah, no, absolutely correct. This whole notion of having more than 1 bedroom,
No,
or just having a bedroom, period.
And we'll cross this a lot. You know, I feel like the Western way is to divide everything up into smaller and smaller pieces and make it more and more specialized. You know, before you had a house, that's where you lived. 1 room, big enough for everybody. And then now you have to divide it up.
Interesting.
Right. If you have boys and girls, they can't sleep in the same room.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I was getting at is, if you look at the way my mom was growing up, it was very acceptable. She wasn't like rich, but she wasn't at risk of CPS taking the kids away for lack of care.
Now imagine if you hear five
Right.
kids living in a 1-bedroom house, call the CPS.
Right. And what I was getting at is, to the point where you were saying, is, you look at where we're at right now, the system really is great. And we really live better than Kings did not long ago.
Absolutely.
We have more clothes, more shoes.
The foods we
Right.
have. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's like, so the problem is, though, that we don't have this coming from that. I think we're spoiled.
Absolutely. So the spoiledness, and then you have the preppers that kind of, I'll give them to that. They understand if any hiccup happens in this system we built,
Yeah.
if a hiccup happens that stops the system, everybody's screwed. They're done. They're done for. Like, in 2 weeks, people are killing each other, like straight up on the street. Like,
You give them that long, huh?
Yeah, no, 2 weeks, people are murdering each other to feed their family. Absolutely. After 3 days, people are starting to be concerned, and then after 3 days to up to 2 weeks is when.
So I guess the question then is, do you believe it's going to happen?
No. I mean, I still want to be prepared.
A little bit.
I always want to be prepared, right? But I don't believe any major doomsday scenarios that have been so far, like, let's say the April 8th eclipse. And there's this one about the April 8th. There was in 2017, there was another eclipse that happened. I especially remember that when I was, staring at it with the whatever.
Got your welding helmet on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was basically going one way, and then this other eclipse is going the other way. So, like, there's this X, and there's this spot, and you're hearing all this stuff like, the whole there's this radiation military department is getting called out to this area. All the highway patrol are going to be patrolling. Like this
Wow.
military's coming out in this area. It's like all this scary doomsday. Squeeze.
And it's just nonstop though. And I stopped watching the news a long time ago. As far as my parents. I grew up. My parents got off work. My dad worked. My mom didn't. For the better portion of my growing up, my dad would come home. Yada yada yada. We'd have dinner. Shower, the routine, all this stuff. And then we would watch a little bit of TV from about 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. And they always watched the news. It like clockwork.
And speaking of the news, because the news is, or the modern news, is not news. It's this is how you should think. This is how you should feel. And over the years, over the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years since, we were kids watching the news, they perfected that to such an extreme level. What to say, when to say it, how to make you feel.
Have you watched the TV series The Wire?
Sounds really familiar.
It's a really popular TV
Yeah.
series. They go through several seasons, and it's really interesting because every season takes you through a version of like a project, drug dealing area of society. And it takes you through, like, you start out and you're in the projects with the kids. Then, like, the next season, all the players stay in the story, but the next season it's like now we're over with the cops.
Okay.
And
was this a real reality show?
No. This was just a purely fictional story.
Okay.
But as the story progresses through time, they sort of move the focus. So first it's like in the project, then it's over on the police, but it ends, very surprisingly, the last season ends over at the news. And how the news and the politics and everything is sort of like
this must be an older show because they wouldn't do that now.
Look it up.
I'm not connected.
Look it up.
The Wire.
The Wire.
Well, because I heard of it this morning. I was watching a clip from some Senate hearing, and she goes, "Well, just like on The Wire, I'm sure you know of it." I'm like, "The Wire sounds very familiar."
Really, you heard something about The Wire this morning, and now I'm bringing it up? Yeah. I must be.
It's the weirdest thing.
I know. Are we sure we're not in the Matrix?
2002. So yeah, no, it's from the golden years. The Wire episodes based on true story. The Wire is based on true story, is it? To tell the real story behind The Wire itself, loosely based on a fictional story told in the show. Loosely based on the fictional. Okay, I don't know how loosely if it's fictional. Okay, whatever. 5 seasons. Interesting.
Right. So it's not a super long series, but it's just how at the end it ends. Again, all the players you see until you get to the last season. And in the last season, they introduce the media, the news particularly, and how the news pushes the view for the politicians and for the police and what they...
For climate change.
And for climate change. Exactly.
So, okay. The whole idea of climate change is that human activity is causing a out of balance warming.
Right.
And there's been stuff happened before, cooling and warming. If you obviously look through the ice charts, you'll see, right? And depends on when you start, we're either cooling or we're warming, right? But that's not the whole thing of this whole idea of climate change. Climate change is the idea of we're speeding it up to a unstoppable level. So, and then the whole canoe effect's going to happen.
Okay.
It'll just one day it'll flip, and then in the 2-week instant, the whole top of the Earth is starting to glow, to freeze up, and we're building those big ice sheets that we've discovered before.
Right, and it's so strange because it seems like whenever I come up with this subject, there's always, the global warming, the greenhouse effect. We've got holes in the ozone and they can never be repaired. Like, I've been through a lot of.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
You know.
we start off with the global cooling, then it was the ozone. I know there's a few different ones. There was a few different. There was even a meme where it's like it's this. Now we have global warming, but again, they switched it to climate change. Climate change could be anything, but you have to pay your carbon tax. Carbon tax will help the climate change not happen.
And I really think that's where this is leading.
Absolutely. I agree
Where
with
they're
you.
going to want to monitor your travel.
It's due to climate change.
Right.
It has nothing to do with control. It's climate change.
We're just doing this for your safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Poke, poke, poke.
Look, all I'm saying is all we have to do is get rid of about 90% of the people on the planet right now, and everything will be fine. There'd be enough food, resources. Think about your commute to work. It'd be so nice if 90% of the cars were gone.
Yeah, but I would also have 90% less income, which should probably be okay because there's no demand on anything.
and with all those people gone, where do you think all that money is going to go? Just distributes back up.
Yeah, but then that money has no value because there's no demand.
I'm only kidding. I don't want 90% of our population to go away. But
50 though, right?
no. No, I think so. This goes back to some of the religions, Mormons included, where have you ever seen the picture of what seven, like, I know we would never all starting in one right next to the other, but have you ever seen how much actual real estate 7 or 8 billion people takes up on the planet?
Yeah, it fits, I think, like New York.
City.
Yeah, New York City. Yeah, not even the state.
Yeah, it's like New York City.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, the size of Texas is huge. I think size of Texas is bigger than Ukraine.
right.
There was like 50 or 60 million people in Ukraine before the war.
So the idea that the world is overcrowded is...
I don't think that's the problem. It's not the overcrowded. It's the human activity that is causing the too much greenhouse.
So, they're going to limit my travels here in my little putt-putt, but we can fire big giant rockets up into the space and...
But, well, okay, that's nothing. That's like how much volcanoes do, how much just the normal activity of the Earth does. It does so much more than the human activity. So, but also this extra carbon, greenhouse gases, they help trees grow.
Well, some do. So there's other gases in the greenhouse gases.
I guess, sure, it's a mixture. Okay.
Right. So there's like methane, and there's why they're saying, the cow farms are destroying the planet.
Burp.
Cow farts and burps, yeah.
It's the burps. It's
It's
not
the burps.
yeah.
Okay, so...
they just fart from their mouth.
Right, exactly. So there's that. There are... That really... I actually wanted to have that ready for us. I didn't get it ready, though.
What?
That meeting, I don't know if it was like the Senate or the Congress or whatever, and they were like, so what percentage of the atmosphere is CO2?
Yeah. It's point something.
It's less than...
It's like 0.0. Let's see. I'll look it up real quick because it's something so absurd.
It's so low.
They're like, I don't know, 20%. I saw that. And then one's like 15%.
Right. And then it can't really drop much lower.
Yeah, if it goes lower, life starts to die off.
Right. The plants can't survive.
Yeah, exactly. 0.04. The carbon dioxide CO2 makes up about 0.04 of the Earth's atmosphere.
Yeah.
This is an increase of 50%. Just 50%. So you're saying we're a 0.02 since the Industrial Revolution.
Right.
How would you measure that?
How would they know?
Yeah.
So what they're relying on a lot of is things they can look at that have captured atmosphere in the past.
Sure.
So
Sure.
bubbles and ice.
Yeah, that makes sense. But how accurate are those measurements? I guess if you measure 100 different points, you kind of get a better perspective. But I'll tell you, here's another tip to the whole of how it used to be versus how it is now. Like, there's a lot of people go, wow, there's so many more earthquakes, so many storms, so many more things happening. No, it's just because you have the power of the internet and communications that's instantly, which you hear all this. Back in the day, stuff happened, you would never know. Same thing with the, measuring technology. 100 years ago, our capabilities of measuring precise temperatures was pretty good, but not compared to now. Now we could give you a 0.0000, right?
No, we can do it all over the place.
Exactly, instantly. Yeah, we know exactly what part of the. So the whole measuring of CO2 that they measured back then, or like you said, they measured it from using bubbles in the ice or stuff like that.
I think they have used a multitude of different methods. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the science behind it. I
Right.
mean, it could possibly. I don't see why they would lie.
I really feel like you're trying to get somewhere with this topic. But...
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's not a conspiracy.
It's not. I know.
It's not.
Just buy a Tesla and keep
Buy a
pushing.
Tesla, keep changing the weather.
So this goes back to kind of, I was saying something a while ago, okay? I don't need to be sold on fear.
Okay, interesting.
I think, you may have watched this and formulated an opinion thinking you might get an idea of what I think, but I think there are good sound practices. I like organic stuff. I like more natural things. I don't need to be sold. I don't need to be forced into an electric car, right? I think that this is an exciting technology. I think electric vehicles are going to be the thing of the future. For different reasons, though, I don't think they're absolutely necessary for climate change.
Yeah, the whole idea of they're better for the climate, I don't know who got sold on that idea.
Well, I think, again, that's kind of why I brought up the wire. There's all these like moving parts and people, and it's like, well, you make this happen and you make that happen. Congress pushes this through. We put this in the press, and they, like you've said, they've got the recipe on how to push the buttons. And I guess you could maybe even argue it's like, they're not pushing for like deforestation. You know what I'm saying? It's like their claim is towards a noble end, right? Cleaning up the environment is not a bad idea.
Hold on. That's the thing. I don't think it's cleaning up the environment. If that was the case, I'm all for it. I don't think anybody, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's 2% of people that are genuinely don't care and they don't care about cleanup. But 98% would say, yes, I would love a cleaner environment.
So what you're saying is that you don't, are you saying that what you believe is that their efforts to clean up the environment are actually harming the environment more than leaving it alone the way it is?
Sure. For example, the huge wind turbines, the big fans, and they're not to cool down. And what's it called? Somebody said it was to
it's not to blow the Amish an ice cold breeze.
It was not to cool down the cows. Because there's somebody, it was a friend, a coworker of mine. They're like, yeah, we were driving my mom once, and my mom's all, why is there these big old fans? They're like, oh, it's to cool down the cows. Anyways, producing that fan spent I forget the numbers. It's either double or 3 times the energy it took would have just to waste that energy producing electricity than that fan will ever produce. It's almost a scam. I mean, what am I saying? It is a scam at this point.
Okay.
If those are the numbers, it's a scam. Even if it's 1-to-1, it's still a scam. It's not going to be 1-to-1. It's going to be, something always above. It's always going to take more energy to basically manufacture the manufacture process, then to transport it, to set it up. All that fan. That's not a fan. What's the proper term for it? I just had it in my mind.
Turbine?
No, it's not a turbine. I forget what it's called. Windmill.
Oh.
Yeah.
Or a wind
farm. Yeah.
Right.
Wind farm. That's. Anyways, that is never gonna produce the energy back in return more than was spent on developing that, because it's so complex to develop it. I don't know how it stands with solar panels. Solar panels might be similar.
Solar panels are a remarkably simple technology.
Yes.
It is not that much going into the production of the materials for the amount. What we lack, to be perfectly honest with you, and what fossil fuels, coal, and all these other things have provided for
energy
us
storage.
is the energy
we
storage.
Talked about it, but it's a beautiful subject. It's energy storage. Let's imagine. No, we don't have the technology for it. Absolutely, that's kind of the end of the discussion there. We don't have the technology to store this energy that these devices produce. So maybe the wind farm can produce, windmill farm can produce enough energy, but because we have nowhere to store it, we don't run them all the time.
Well, we're not running it. They just collect the energy of the wind.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, when like at night, they have to disable them because
plus they kill the birds.
Okay, so if we did have the proper way to store that energy, maybe then it would make sense. Maybe that's why, the numbers make sense to produce using those devices to produce the energy. But since we don't have the way to store them, that's why it takes more energy to create them than they will produce in their lifetime.
And I think what we're in the middle of is moving us, maybe, I'm playing devil's advocate here, maybe the powers that be have a broader view of this. Maybe they're looking at this and it's like, well, if we don't get the people motivated to make this technology, we're going to never get there in time.
But then that's taken the angle of, I'm the politician, got elected by these people, but I know better than them, so I'm going to do not what they thought I was going to do. That's why they voted for me. I'm going to do what I think is best.
Right. And I'm going to say this to get elected so I can... Yeah.
Exactly.
A little bit of that.
Again, there was a video that I just saw today where the politician goes, I'm going to do what my people elected me to do. I'm going to vote against whatever they were trying to vote for. And the other guy's but no, we know better. Us politicians, we know better because we've been in politics for so long.
Right.
We know better for you.
And that's kind of how politics got going in a way. It was, the story behind the FCC, right? Probably.
No. Yeah.
So, once upon a time, it was reasonable to expect a person to have enough knowledge and wisdom in anything, agriculture, medicine, they could make a law on it. And that changed, that concept that one person could know enough to make a law on anything you could make a law on. That changed with the radio, and we got the FCC.
Interesting.
And the FCC and then other things followed, but it started with the FCC, and anything with that F in the front, not just any F, but that F, Like they can make laws without going through the standard judicial process because they need people with enough specialized knowledge in it to be able to make a law in it. So when you think, about, well, it makes sense, right? But it also circumvents the checks and balance system.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't, but it makes sense. Like, hey, why don't you have a group of people making the laws that know about that particular
Right.
subject? And they're talking about communications.
So at the time,
waves or
what was happening is there was no regulation on the frequency that you used. So if you were playing your radio station on 102 point whatever, there was no rule that anybody else could just
Yep, makes sense.
and then they could just, if they had the equipment, they could just turn their signal boost up high enough and override your signal. And so they created the FCC.
Well, I mean, okay, FCC I think is a government agency that's needs to be there.
But then they started popping up for everything.
Well, here's the thing. At this point, FCC is so corrupt because they're just who pays them the most money. They give those frequency to them. Now it's not it's for the people. It's for its corporations or whoever gives me the biggest
and
check.
they regulate everything. They regulate, flights. Like
Commercial airline.
right. They regulate all kinds of chemicals.
FCC regulates chemicals?
No, so the last letters are different, but there's like
Oh, you mean
the FAA is for
Oh, you're talking about the FFA.
So,
We're
not
talking about 3-letter agency.
well, right. So the first one started with the FCC.
That was that's what you're saying.
Right. That was in response
Then the
to
FDA.
Right. Food and Drug Administration is not actually one of them because it's not federal. The F is federal.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So
You're saying the FDA is not federal?
I'm not saying that it isn't. And if it is, then fine, it could be in that. But there's this vein of stuff where, like for medical, for chemicals, for all these different things.
All these government agencies that are
regulating what you're not smart enough to make a law about.
Well, I mean, okay, playing devil's advocate, there's a lot of people that are not. Just because you and I are interested in a lot of this stuff and we dig and trying to learn and we're excited about it, some people that are just, NPCs. How many NPCs? And I think these 3-letter agencies are there to control the NPCs.
Have you heard
warning labels?
Have you heard of this concept about that everybody should have the right to vote, but you can't vote until you pass an aptitude test?
I'm not against that idea. Here's the problem, though. It's the chicken or the egg. Who's going to be in charge of that aptitude test?
Right. And how high of a bar are you going to set?
Maybe the aptitude test only 5% of the people pass. I mean, then I guess you got to hey, redo it. Let's make sure, at least 50% of the people pass.
Right. And then what about the other 50% that are just getting controlled by the other 50%?
Well, isn't that democracy? Hey, yo! I would like to talk about the whole idea of democracy, that we're a democracy. That's for another time, though.
Republic. Or republic.
Sure. I know. But I want to discuss what a democracy is.
Okay.
And where ultimately what happens to a democracy, where it leads us to.
So ultimately, do you believe in the idea of climate change, or do you think it's farce?
Well, I mean, it changes all the time. There's at least 4 seasons a year.
No, but climate change as it's being... Do you believe that what we're doing is negatively impacting the climate to the point where we should act?
Um, we were, I would say, we were. If you look at the carbon emissions from all the first world countries like the U.S., many of the European countries, we've actually been either stable or declining. The third world countries, including China, it's been skyrocketing. It's been like those countries. I mean, the trash that's going into the oceans, into the rivers, all that stuff was not developed to work with countries that don't have a system for it. Right. So the climate change itself is no, but I think it's just a farce, just another thing to control you by people that know better than you.
Right.
Yeah, supposedly. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling, but it's the environment. I'm a huge proponent of like keeping the environment clean.
Right.
And I think that's not the same thing.
No, and I think there's a lot of people, like I actively conserve water.
Yeah, same in a weird way. Like I overdo it.
Oh, so you don't bathe anymore?
No, I stopped bathing. Yeah. Like
No,
I have this rain bucket and I collect it and I only bathe in that. And if I don't have the rain, then I don't bathe.
So you only bathe in rainwater?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm curious. How are you conserving water?
Okay, it's kind of weird, but like I don't let it run.
That great.
Yeah, like little things like that. Like, let's see. I when I do it, I'm like, man, this is so weird. Why am I doing this, conserving water this way? So I like recognize, but now you put me on the spot. I don't remember what it is. It's like when I garden and when I like the way the water runs off. Oh, I don't like when I wash my car. I wash it on the grass.
Oh yeah.
I don't wash it on the driveway, so the water would go into the grass instead of just going down to the ditch and going away. That's one example. There's other like the way I wash things, dishes and stuff. I like little things here and there. I'm consciously always trying to conserve, but I don't know if that's to conserve for the environment, which I don't think it is. I think it's more just my natural ability to be more efficient and conserve.
I conserve water. I grew up farming. Water was a big deal.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And not wasting it, like we used to call gray water. A lot of people around the area where I grew up, their washer machine drained out to something, or, even their bath water would drain out into the garden because the soap is fine. And the dirt that you wash off is fine, and then the rest of it's just water.
Sure,
and
yeah,
you just water the garden with your,
That's one way of doing it, absolutely.
I'm pretty quick in the shower. That's where
Yeah, sure, same. I don't take long showers.
and then I really like modern car washes and dishwashers. They use very little water.
Sure, and I'm a big fan of that. Clothes washers,
Yeah.
dryers. Yeah, all the new stuff I'm a big fan of.
It's really funny because I was thinking about that the other day. My mom used to have a clothesline, and I don't see them anymore ever.
Speaking about efficiency and conserving, clothesline is the best. You can't beat the clothesline.
Yeah, you take
I had a clothesline
right.
until I started doing the laundry.
Oh,
Yeah, and then I'm like, I cut down the tree. It was like going from the tree to the shed, and
no, we had this funny little T thing that looked like telephone poles.
yeah, lots of people. That's like an American thing, I think.
Right.
I've never seen it anywhere else. No, you mean it was around, or actually like two poles, the T, and then the strings across.
That one.
Oh, that's the standard one. That's like all over Europe. That was it.
Yeah, my dad built it. He got,
yeah.
it was like 2 4x4s and
2x2s,
like
or 2x4s.
no, like 2 4x4s and then another 4x4 cut in half to make the
T-top.
T-top, and then eye hooks and clothesline.
Yeah.
Like that, you used to be able to go to the hardware store and go, I need some clothesline, and they would bring over this little green or blue plastic coated wire.
Clothesline. I haven't heard that term in who knows how
No,
long.
not related to WWF. Clothesline. It's when you
Oh yeah,
when you
no,
clotheslines.
that's over my head. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, I never heard of that term.
Oh, there's so much to teach you, young Padawan.
Yeah, we have a lot to learn. Anyways, I think with that we're done.
All right, support the planet, climate change.
Yeah, keep it clean.
Yeah, definitely recycle,
Stop pouring your oil on the street.
but don't be fooled.
Don't be fooled. That is the end.